In the first video for today, we're talking about globalism, economic authoritarianism, regime changes using economic warfare, where people are just basically caught in the middle. They'll say, ooh, Russia this, was Russia companies or Russian people? Right? Libya, what's Libya? Is it the Libyan people? What are the Libyan people? Well, they're actually a bunch of tribes with different names and different ideas, right? Different religious beliefs, but we'll just say Libya. Anyways, this Iraq, right? They used to be pro something, either east or west, usually pro Russian or pro U.S. Libya, it's like Syria right now. They're definitely more pro Russian, even though Russia would totally leave them hanging like they did Libya, right? Except they have a naval base there. They have something to lose. So we haven't seen Syria fall yet, as far as the Assad government goes. But this is what I'm getting at. This is what we have now, right? This is a humanitarian mission, the result of a humanitarian mission by the West. As far as Libya goes, it's not even secure enough to really conduct any commerce there, as they say. North Korean tanker went there to get some oil from these Libyan, basically Libyans in the east. They're trying to pump oil and export it, right? Some people call them terrorists, but they want to do, just like in Syria, start pumping oil after they take it over. Well, the Libyan government actually was like shooting missiles off, I think surface-to-air missiles or something, or surface missiles, and shooting them at this tanker that was heading back with Libyan oil back to North Korea. You probably remember back when this whole Gaddafi ouster was taking place, it was mostly Western people that were living in the United States or Britain or Europe for the past, 5-10 years, educated at Oxford. Basically they're frontmen for these Western oil companies. And the Libyan defense minister, or you could say an oil representative, coverman, took over duties as the new oil Western frontman this morning. As a Libyan parliament, or you could say like the corporate board of trustees, voted no confidence in the current CEO after the North Korean flag tanker broke the blockade from a rebel or terrorist-held port. It's understandable, though, as far as North Korea wanting to get oil from them. I think they've had Western sanctions against them forever. Growing Chinese influence is worrying North Korean officials. There are serious concerns among some North Korean officials that North Korea could turn into a vassal state of China amid growing economic dependence on its sole ally. It says without Chinese capital and goods, it would be impossible for the North Korean government to operate, and ordinary people would not be able to carry on with their daily lives. It says North Korea grew up so dependent on China in the 20 years of Kim Jong-il's rule that it's now impossible to construct buildings, grow farm produce, or sustain the regime without imports of Chinese materials, fertilizer, and pesticides. So I don't know if this is some kind of disinformation to be pushed, so don't take it as like I'm saying this is what's happening with the Chinese economy. But there's a lot of stuff going around in the news cycles about China's debt bubble and how their economy is slowing down and stuff. Chinese components, because everything's based off speculation. So if they say that and it's not necessarily true, it'll hurt economy when it's actually not doing as bad as what they thought it was. And there was a lot of that going around here in the U.S. after 2008. In 2009, Chinese components found in B-1 bombers and F-16 fighters. So you hear a lot about this stuff, right? About the us versus them, the East versus West. And I wish I could have got these articles and what I'm saying in the first video, because it all kind of ties together. We're talking about Iran, for the most part, selling out to the West and stuff like that to get their economy rolling, right? The people at top, they're feeling the effects as much as the people on the bottom, the regular people, the masses of Iranians, have been feeling the effects of these sanctions against them because, for nuclear weapons, supposedly. Syria's Assad. I don't know, man. When he basically said that he was going to give up their chemical weapons, he was he was basically admitting to something that they may not have even done, which is gas civilians. Those were the Western-backed fighters or terrorists. And so now they're completely helpless to outside attacks, which I think that was a form of capitulation by them. Maybe they realized too that Russia wasn't really going to help them. But yeah, this is the global economy, and this is the new system as far as everything kind of just being the same. There's really no loyalties based on anything, whether it's, I think the last loyalties are like religious now. There's no ethnic loyalties or national loyalties or even ideological, because even that, like I said, it seems to just be a front for some kind of economic interest. Then you have this basically missing plane, Malaysian Airlines flight. What was it, holding over 200 people, 250 people, disappeared, right? So you're hearing in some websites that this was actually openly, the West and officials and authorities and all that saying it looks like it was a terrorist attack, even though they haven't found it. You have some saying that this was an actual 9/11 type thing, an inside job, false flag by China, similar to what the Zionists in the West did here in the United States. When the recession was occurring, things were getting kind of bad. It may be like the theories with 9/11, where there was actually nobody on the flight, or it was a drone. But this thing may be not found for a reason. When it is found, maybe it's not going to be what we think it is. It could be an empty plane. It could be a plane full of bodies that were already dead before it even crashed. Blame it on the West, right? But there have been terrorist attacks in China. Before I went on the hiatus, I actually was covering some of these events that were occurring in China's, I think it was one of their border regions, but I think they were Muslim terrorists. West muted response on terror attack in China. This was in March 2014. A horrific terror attack at a railroad station left 29 dead, 100 wounded. It was the work of these Uyghur separatists hailing from western China. The U.S. would only condemn the attacks as an act of terror after China accused Washington of applying double standards to its coverage and stance on the incident. However, the U.S.'s failure to initially condemn the attack as terrorism runs deeper than mere superficial double standards applied to a global competitor. So, the U.S. is, in fact, driving the separatist movement and encouraging violence and creating these foul human rights organizations to then condemn the predictable response of Chinese security forces. So, again, there's some big things going on in the background. This may not have just been a jet that went down. If I remember correctly, wasn't there an actual verification that the TWA flight back in, in the 90s was actually shot down by a missile or something? Yeah, I just dug this up. Members of the original investigation team claimed the report in the 96 crash was subject to a government cover-up. They have submitted a petition calling for the NTSB, to reopen the investigation. They say, are conspiracy theorists who say TWA Flight 800 was shot down right? So, filmmakers claim the jet was crashed over Long Island, killing. So, this is possible, and I just covered an article, on Monday, where they were conjecturing that this flight was actually shot down by a missile. And the West is saying that it's a terrorist attack. So we'll see. The West plans major new rebel offensive in southern Syria. The U.S. and Saudis from Saudi Arabia, of course, are pushing a new offensive to back moderates. This is all kind of timely, this stuff that's going on, like this flight and going down along with Ukraine, and their economy going down, and reports are emerging. And the economy in the U.S., it may seem like it's okay, but it's all based off debt, and anyways, it gives the illusion that things are prosperous when they're not really. So I think the entire system is kind of desperate right now. We just covered, Zero Hedge posted an article, 100 trillion global debt or something. Reports are, people have to supposedly work that off. Well, how could you work it off in an economy that's based off consumer spending if you don't have money to spend, right? And companies like Gazprom or whatever this monopoly is that's getting pushed into the Ukraine are going to overcharge people for natural gas, right? That is a big sham, though, when you think about it. You just follow it, right? The U.S. is overtaking Russia. and natural gas production, and overtaking Saudi Arabian oil production. Well, then why are gas prices higher? Why are natural gas prices so much, right? Well, because they're taking a lot of money. They're taking all that profit just to a select few people, and they don't actually pay flipping taxes. Corporate tax. That's, people talk about welfare, and they talk about, those evil people that collect welfare and don't have a job, because there's actually not enough jobs for people. They don't focus on the corporate welfare, which is these people that suck out all that wealth, and then they don't pay taxes. And then when they do buy things, is it actually taxed when they buy these huge yachts or mansions? Or do they use offshore accounts? So when the West was done with Syria, I thought they were done. At least they were taking a break. They kind of moved on to Africa, then it kind of stopped there a little bit. Then they're in Russia's doorstep. They got the Ukraine. I think that was a success for them. Now, all of a sudden, March 11th, they're moving back to Syria, maybe to finish that operation off. Reports are emerging that there's an imminent new rebel terrorist offensive against the Assad government positions of southern Syria. It's coming out of Jordan, where the U.S. is training and bankrolling rebel fighters. There's Blackwater, there's MI6, and all kinds of stuff. CIA-trained rebel Islamic fighters. West to accelerate proxy war on Syria, says a report. So there you go. This is coming out of the Guardian. So they're announcing it. Syria, and then you hear the propaganda. When you see this coming out, I saw this coming out. This was the 10th, so this was 2 days ago, and I was like, okay. They could be building something up here, and they are, because I haven't really covered Syria in a while. I haven't even looked at the news. Syria's barbaric health conditions, killing kids by the thousands, right? So when they say Syria's barbaric health conditions, they're talking about Syria's health system. Well, they had a pretty good health system. It's probably better than the average Americans. Kind of like in Libya or somewhere, or Venezuela, you go somewhere else to get the treatment if they don't have it. But it says here, report lays bare horrific impact of the system's collapse. Well, has the system collapsed yet? I don't know. They have called on outside people and aid and the UN to recognize what is taking place here. But that's not the point. The point is to just let this happen so that they can exploit these people that have died, and especially children, and basically blame the government for this. The other victims too, again, are Americans, are Brits, and Europeans in general, because they're forking the bill to fund these training of these militants, overthrow this government, and cause a situation where these hundreds or tens of thousands of children are dying, where women or priests are being abducted and murdered, mosques or churches and schools blown up. You're paying for that. You're also paying for these asylum seekers and refugees and people from Syria, including the terrorists, to come over into your country and then drain your welfare system, right? So I guess if you were going to complain about it, that's something you can complain about as far as welfare goes, besides the tax or corporate welfare. But people in Britain and the Americans, they would have to start thinking more. They would have to start being more thinking critically about things. And they couldn't just say, the Tories and the conservatives and all this mumbo jumbo. They'd have to say, our government is funding terrorists to overthrow sovereign governments. We have nothing to do with this. And we are suffering the consequences. But, and then the establishment of the governments or whatever, the local oligarchs will say the same thing. They'll disseminate it through the media, which is, these people are against open immigration that are draining their system. Because like the NHS, they can't get health care themselves, but these people are coming over there that aren't even, Brits, whatever, they can. You're racist. And that's actually what they say, right? You're a racist. To Iraq, another country that was overthrown through regime change. Middle East terrorism could spill over to the West. And he's saying that what's happening in Syria, he's calling on the international community to fight terrorism in Syria, warning that it could soon affect European countries. Well, the European countries have kind of and the UN who's turned a blind eye, are causing this situation. So, of course, they're not going to do anything. He also says Saudi Arabia and Qatar are openly funding violence in Iraq. And now they're actually fighting each other. Post-Afghanistan, Pakistan receives mysterious $1.5 billion to expect more drone strikes for a payoff. UK drones are going from Afghanistan to Africa.